Hello, hello, ladies. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the top 5 hormones of metabolism. This is my little mini series that I've created for you ladies to talk about the impact that our hormones, or more specifically, hormonal imbalances, can have on our ability to lose weight. And we have been discussing lots of different hormones this week. So we started off the week talking about cortisol, and then we talked about insulin, we talked about the thyroid, as well as estrogen dominance. And we're finishing off today's series, and we're talking about human growth hormone. Now, if you have not had a chance to watch all of the episodes, you can still catch them. They are all posted under the announcements inside the group, so definitely go and check them out this weekend. I'll leave them up for about another week. Hi, Martine. And today, we're finishing off with human growth hormone, and this is a hormone that doesn't really get that much attention, but I do believe that it should. We've been talking a lot about, hormones that have an anti-lipolytic effect, which literally means against fat burning. So we've talked a lot about fat storing hormones. And today we're talking about a fat burning hormone. This is a hormone that we want to have more of in order to encourage our body to release stored energy in our fat cells. So you're going to want to listen up here. So as per usual, as you know, I like to talk about sort of a little bit of a story of how I learned about this particular hormone. And this one, I was listening to a podcast with someone that I follow. His name is Dr. Pompa. He's a chiropractor, really big into detox and fasting and also low carb diets. And on this particular podcast that I listened to, he was talking about his wife, who was going through perimenopause and menopause, like most of us, and was starting to struggle with her weight and was starting to gain belly fat and was starting to lose muscle, which is what happens to most of us. And like I said, he's really big into fasting and detoxification. And he had his wife go on like a 3 to 5 day water fast once a month. And typically when you're going into these longer fasts, what happens is you lose muscle mass because you're obviously creating a big caloric deficit if you're only drinking water. And when we do create a caloric deficit, inevitably the body will find that energy elsewhere. Part of it's going to come from our fat cells and part of it from our muscle. But what happened after is really interesting, because when she started eating again after her fast, she was able to continue to burn belly fat and build muscle. So she started to see these gains. She started to see this increase in muscle mass. And this is because fasting will boost human growth hormone. So that gives you a little bit of an indication into the role of human growth hormone. Now, that was the first time I heard about this hormone. The second time is when I took a course with Dr. Jade Teta. You may have heard of him. He has a program called Metabolic Renewal. He is one of my mentors, and who I have learned a lot about hormones, specifically the metabolic female and how to help women burn fat. And he talks a lot about human growth hormone and the importance of human growth hormone and how to release human growth hormone via exercise, which we're going to be talking about today. But those are sort of the two people, or the two experts, that really got me into researching this hormone. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk a little bit about what human growth hormone is. We'll talk about how it helps with weight management, or how it can impede with weight management. We're going to talk about what lowers human growth hormone, and of course we're going to talk about how to boost human growth hormone naturally via nutrition and lifestyle, which is what I like to do, as you know. So before we dive into just like understanding what human growth hormone is, I would love for you to say hello. So if you're catching this live, just put a hello in the comments. Tell me where you're joining me from. And of course, if you're catching the replay, would love it if you could just pop a little replay in the comments as well. You know, there is proof that when we actually participate and we interact, we are much more likely to implement the information. So go ahead and pop that in right now. And hello, Diane. And let's dive in. So let's just talk a little bit about what human growth hormone is. So you guys remember Popeye way back when? And Popeye would, like, you know, when there was like a villain, he would like pop open his can of spinach and pop it in his mouth, and then suddenly his muscles would be bulging. So think about human growth hormone kind of like that spinach for Popeye. It is a build you up hormone, much like testosterone. And I talked about testosterone last Friday, so you can go back and watch that episode. But I want you to kind of think about growth hormone as spinach, right? As something that's going to build you up. So this growth hormone is going to help you to build more lean muscle mass. So more muscle, more like bone strength, bone density. And what I want you to understand immediately when it comes to just weight management is that muscle mass, like muscle itself, is a very metabolically active tissue. In other words, it requires a lot of calories to maintain. So the more muscle mass you have on your body, the more calories you can eat. Okay, whether you're looking to lose weight or you're just looking to maintain. And this is a good thing. And this is really important. When we're talking about weight loss, we really should be talking about fat loss, because if you do have a weight loss goal, one of your goals should be to minimize the impact of going on a diet on your lean muscle mass. We do not want your body to be using protein from your muscles to give you energy. We really want to tap into your fat stores. The other big thing about growth hormone is that one of its roles is it helps our body break down fat, specifically belly fat. Okay, so this is something every woman wants to hear about. It is produced in your pituitary gland, which is in your brain. But here's another fact that we're going to come back to, but that's really important, is that so growth hormone it's produced in our pituitary, but then our liver takes growth hormone and turns it into something called HGF1, or insulin-like growth factor 1. And this is what is metabolically active. This is what's going to trigger that fat burning effect. And so key word here being it's produced in the liver. So if you watched my talk yesterday on estrogen dominance, you know that if your liver is overburdened for a number of reasons, then it won't have the manpower to do what it's supposed to do and create this IGF-1. So liver support, right? The other thing about human growth hormone is it is a natural testosterone booster, right? So we do want to have adequate levels of testosterone, and human growth hormone can help. This is why a lot of athletes will illegally take human growth hormone, kind of like steroids, right? So this is one of their hacks if they don't get busted. But also it's really gaining a lot of popularity as a fat burner, right? So I'm sure you've heard of like human growth hormone shots. Like some people get it injected, some people take it as a prescription. I am certainly not telling you right now to go online or anywhere and find human growth hormone and start like injecting it into yourself. Human growth hormone, like everything else that I've been talking about this week, Goldilocks principle, right? Not enough, not good. Too much, not good. It can actually cause cancer. So do not mess around with this. There are certainly lots of things that you can do with your nutrition and your lifestyle to naturally boost it. You certainly, some people do take it as a prescription. I know it's used in diseases where people are losing a lot of muscle mass, like HIV. Then it has been used to really help to support, like, build up that lean muscle mass. So hello Kelsey, hello Martine, hello Carol, hello Tina. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the role of human growth hormone in the context of weight management, because that's what this mini series is about. So like I said, more growth hormone means more muscle mass and increased strength. And again, more growth hormone equals more muscle mass, but more importantly, that means a faster metabolism. Because like I said, muscle is the key because it is metabolically active. The more muscle we have, the faster our metabolism. And on the flip side, if we have low growth hormone, then we are likely going to have less muscle mass, and therefore we're going to have a slower metabolism. So that is one really important element or aspect of growth hormone to understand when it comes to weight management. The second one, which I said, is that this growth hormone is lipolytic, which means it is a fat burner, okay? And basically how it works is that it acts on our fat cells, and it basically just accelerates lipolysis. And lipolysis is when our triglycerides, which are stored fat, they get broken down into different components, and it's those different components that get then turned into energy by our cells. But first we need lipolysis. So we need to basically release the fat into the bloodstream and break it down, and then from there convert it into energy. And so growth hormone will help our body do that, like break it down and release it from the fat cells. So that's why it's really important. Of course, as you can expect, more growth hormone means more lipolysis or more fat burning. Less growth hormone means less lipolysis and less fat burning. So low growth hormone can be one of the reasons that we are metabolically inflexible. If you've never heard of me talk about metabolic flexibility before, really what this refers to is our body's ability to use different macronutrients as energy. So protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And when we are metabolically inflexible, what oftentimes happens is that our body loses the ability to tap into our fat cells. Insulin resistance is one of the causes, but low growth hormone will certainly have an impact on your metabolic flexibility or lack thereof, because again, its role is to get your body to break down stored fat and release it into the bloodstream so that you can use it as energy. Where am I at here? This is the other sort of like little part of understanding sort of the impact of growth hormone on weight management, is that when we have low growth hormone, it can also trigger leptin resistance. Leptin is your satiety hormone. It tells your brain that to stop eating. And women who are quite overweight, what can happen is that the more fat we have in our body, the more our body is sending because our fat tissues are metabolically active, right? We were talking about how they produce estrogen. They also produce leptin. And so the more fat we have on our body, the more we're sending a message like leptin, stop eating. But much like insulin, we can become leptin resistant, which means that our brain basically ignores it. It's like never cry wolf, right? It's like, you know what? You've been telling me to stop eating forever. I'm just going to ignore you now. So growth hormone can have an impact on that. So what causes low growth hormone? The first one I'm going to talk about is lack of sleep. So for my ladies that are listening who like to go to bed at like midnight or 1 a.m, you are having a negative impact on this fat burning hormone. So we produce most of our growth hormone at night when we are sleeping in between the hours of 10 and 2 a.m. So if you are not getting in bed and you are not falling asleep before 10 p.m., then you're impeding the production of growth hormone, which is why I like to get my ladies to bed earlier. And I know this is a hard pill to swallow if you're a night owl, but I like to get in bed. I am lights out sleeping usually by 9:30, sometimes even earlier. But that is why, one of the reasons why getting to bed early is so important, and making sure we get enough sleep. The other thing that's going to have, or the other lifestyle component that's going to have an impact, is lack of exercise or doing the wrong exercise. So exercise in and of itself is going to trigger the release of human growth hormone. And I'm going to tell you exactly what kind of exercise will help with that. But I'll tell you what exercise not to do. It's not that I don't want you to do it. I just want you to understand the impact of it, which is endurance training. So endurance training will lower growth hormone. It doesn't mean you can't ever do endurance training. It doesn't mean that I have a hate on for marathons and Ironmen and that kind of stuff, but we do need to understand the impact. And so potentially we need to think of other ways that we can improve human growth hormone if we're into long distance running, for example. The other really big one is age. It's just a fact of life. So human growth hormone, because it is about building, because it's a build you up hormone, we're gonna produce a ton of it as we're growing up, right? Like as a teenager, as a child, and as a teenager, when we're growing, that's when we produce the most of it. It actually starts to decline in our 20s. So this is a hormone that we need to start thinking about a lot earlier than when we're reaching menopause. And as it declines, it continues with age. And by the time we hit 60, we are producing way less growth hormone. And this is when we need to start thinking about preventative measures or ways to boost it naturally. And menopause is another one. So again, estrogen plays a lot of different roles in the body. One of the roles is to help with the production of human growth hormone. So as estrogen levels decline, so does human growth hormone. So those are some of the things that are going to have a big impact. But the really two important ones are going to be sleep as well as exercise. So signs of low growth hormone. So there are lots. Again, this is not a diagnosis, and a lot of the different signs and symptoms, you're going to be like, okay, but you talked about those same ones on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And again, this is because oftentimes the signs and symptoms, they all correlate together. Or it might be a sign of one thing and a sign of the other. So when it comes to all of these hormones, I guess the main thing is, like, if you're not feeling right, if you're struggling to lose weight, and you don't know what to do about it, and you're eating less food and you're exercising more, get your hormones tested and start to figure out, like, okay, get to the root cause, like what is causing this, right? So some of the signs, so depression, hair loss, lack of libido, losing muscle mass, that's an obvious one, or muscle strength, right? Memory loss, lack of concentration, dry skin, increased triglycerides, fatigue, if you have like increased LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, often referred to as the bad cholesterol, insulin resistance, reduced bone density, that's another obvious one because it builds us up, and increased weight, especially around your belly. Okay, so so human growth hormone will protect us from belly fat. So that's another trigger or another sign. Belly fat can also be a sign of insulin resistance. It can also be a sign of estrogen dominance. So again, sometimes we need to like do a little bit of testing to get to the root cause and figure out, like, okay, which one of it? It's probably going to be a combination of different factors, but we do have to kind of dig a little bit deeper and do a little bit of testing. The test that gets done for human growth hormone is IGF-1. Like I said, human growth hormone gets metabolized by the liver into IGF-1, and that is the metabolic enzyme. It's not an enzyme, it's called a growth factor, but that's the one that's going to interact with your fat cells. And so that's what they're testing. That's what a doctor would test for, or a naturopath or a functional medicine practitioner, to determine if this is a hormonal imbalance that you need to address. So what to do about it? So again, like when I put together Perimenopause Body Solutions, I really designed this program for women over the age of 35, thinking about some of the hormonal imbalances that women are most likely to experience as they're going through perimenopause and menopause, and human growth hormone is one of those, right? Because I know it has a natural tendency to decrease with age. I know it has a natural tendency to decrease with perimenopause and menopause, and partially that might be because we start to have really bad sleep patterns. But we know that as we're going through midlife, this is something that we have to start dealing with. So that is one of the hormones that I took into consideration when creating the program. Now, from a lifestyle perspective, as you're going to imagine, the two things that I encourage my clients to do is, number one, get good quality sleep so that we can ensure that we're giving our body, as much, we're kind of like giving our body the best scenario for producing as much of this growth hormone as we can. So getting to bed early, trying to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And I know for some of you, you're like, well, that's great, Haley, but I have insomnia. This is where we need to start working on our sleep hygiene. We cannot control how much we sleep. All we can control is what we do in order to improve our sleep. That's all we can control. And then the other big thing inside my program is encouraging women not to have late night snacks. So we try to eat we try to stop eating 3 hours before bed, and that is supposed to also encourage the production of growth hormone, because from how I understand it, if we're eating and we're triggering insulin, we're going to have a hard time producing growth hormone. And then the second one is exercise. And so, and more specifically, high intensity exercise. That is what is going to trigger the release of growth hormone. So this is like sprint training, burst training, high intensity interval training, metabolic conditioning, like anything where we are working at a high intensity. And I want to define what high intensity means here. This is like 80 to 100% of max effort. This is anaerobic. So we have different energy zones. So there's aerobic and there is anaerobic. Aerobic is like jogging or moderate intensity cardio, or going for like a bike ride. Anaerobic is a different energy system. It's an energy system that when you shift into that, you're essentially above what's called the lactate threshold. And you will know if you're working in your anaerobic energy zone, if you are getting that burning sensation in your muscles. So if you've ever done like say push-ups or jump squats or jumping lunges, and you know that like the longer you go, that burn, like it literally feels like your muscles are on fire. And eventually you get to the point where your muscles are like, sorry, no more jump squats for you. That is where you need to be working. That is the intensity that you need to be working at in order to produce human growth hormone. And just to understand here is that when it comes to this sort of higher intensity stuff, it is not about doing this for as long as you can. We want to be limiting this to 5 to 30 minutes. And there's a reason for that. So number one, you're going to start producing human growth hormone about 10 minutes into high intensity interval training. Women, we peak at 20 minutes. That's when we peak. That's when we get the most human growth hormone. But when you go past 30 minutes, you also start to trigger too much cortisol, going back to Monday, and cortisol is going to make weight loss harder. So again, it's all about balance. So what I like to do with my women is we do about 30 minutes, including warm up, including cool down. So they're in that sort of high intensity zone for about 24 minutes. That's it. And we do it 3 times a week. That's it. Okay. So that's sort of like that exercise piece. Now, when it comes to nutrition, we do three things. So number one, we want to support the liver, right? Again, I told you that the liver is really key to converting human growth hormone into IGF-1. So we want to remove extra burden. Like we want to, stop burdening the liver. And this is like heavy metals, this is toxins, this is alcohol, this is sugar. So just removing those things as much as possible, extra hormones, antibiotics in the foods that we eat. So, we try to do a very clean approach. We try to avoid these things. And in so doing, we're supporting the liver and we're giving it a chance to do what it has to do with human growth hormone. So that's a really important one. And then the other one is intermittent fasting. And again, here, when it comes to intermittent fasting, Goldilocks principle, not too much, not too little, but just right. Going back to what I talked about this week, if we're doing too much intermittent fasting, then we can trigger cortisol. We can have a negative impact on the thyroid. And so, I like to think of it as like hormone sensitive intermittent fasting or Goldilocks intermittent fasting. But fasting in and of itself is going to boost the production of human growth hormone. So when we're doing it, and when we're adding it into our lifestyle as a strategy, which is, in my opinion, one of the best strategies, it also happens to be the cheapest because you don't have to, there's no cost to fasting, right? But learning how to do that is going to naturally help with those human growth hormones. Going back to the story that I talked about at the very, very beginning, Dr. Pompa's wife, who was doing like these 3 to 5 day water fasts, and then suddenly was like, whoa, check out my biceps. And that's because she was producing more of this human growth hormone. And then finally, just making sure that you are getting enough protein. There's a direct correlation between the amount of protein in your diet and IGF-1. That's the metabolically active growth factor that's going to encourage the body to burn through stored fat in our fat cells. So that's it for human growth hormone. I hope that was helpful. I hope you learned some stuff. Hello, Kathy, and thank you for your comment. So if you guys have been watching all week, you may have noticed that, again, when it comes to nutrition and lifestyle, if you try to think of it all separately, it might be like overwhelming. Like, I've got to think about my thyroid, and I've got to think about estrogen, and I've got to think about insulin. But honestly, it comes, there's like these big rocks, right? There's certain big rocks that can have a massive impact on all of these hormones, right? So making sure that you're eating real food, making that that it's nutrient dense, that it's anti-inflammatory, that it is lower in carbs, depending on your personal tolerance for carbohydrates, and that's going to be different for every woman. Intermittent fasting, not too much, not too little, but just right. Stress management, sleep, taking care of our metabolic health, our gut health, our liver, our hormones, exercise, right? So making sure that we're exercising, Goldilocks principle, again, not too much, not too little, but just right. But a lot of these things, a lot of these habits overlap. And so really it boils down to like implementing these different habits and understanding that it's going to have a positive impact on your hormones. And I am certainly not a naturopathic doctor. I'm not a chiropractor. I'm not a functional medicine practitioner. I am not, my goal here is not to say, hey, do these things and I will heal your hormones. But I can tell you that you are going to support hormonal balance. Some of you are going to need the help of your doctor to really create hormonal balance, because it depends on how imbalanced you are. You may need to have some extra support for your thyroid. You may need to have some extra support when it comes to your insulin levels until you get it figured out, or have someone kind of, watch what's happening and tell you how that's happening. You may need extra help for your liver. But certainly taking these steps of changing your nutrition and changing your lifestyle are going to be very supportive of healing your body. And I truly believe that, again, when it comes to stubborn weight loss, oftentimes what it boils down to is we need to heal the body first. And I see that in two categories: hormones and metabolic health. So hormones, like the ones that I've already told you about, are sort of like the kingpins. And metabolic health, what I'm talking about there is like liver health, gut health are two big ones, but just metabolic speed and metabolic flexibility. So metabolic flexibility being the ability to tap into your fat stores, and metabolic speed being making sure that you're burning the optimal amount of calories and that your body isn't stuck. Like, you know, I like to think that the metabolism will go into stress mode, especially if we're going to extremes. We're cutting our calories too low, we're working out too hard, we're doing one meal a day every single day. It's just too much stress on your metabolism. And when your metabolism is stressed out, it is not going to let you release that fat. So we need to think about all of these things when we are wanting to lose weight. And hopefully this week I have helped you understand more specifically when it comes to hormones, some of those factors that we need to start to take into consideration. So this is the last of the series. I thank you so much for joining me. And you know, this is the Black Friday weekend. So if you do want help implementing the information, as you know, or maybe you've just heard this, but I do have a special offer on the personal coaching program that I designed for the women in this group that are between like 35 and 65, so that you can learn how to implement all of this information and balance out your hormones and improve your metabolic health and create sustainable change. That's the most important, because this isn't about going on a diet for 30 days. This is about changing your nutrition and changing your lifestyle for good. So if you would like to learn more about that, what you want to do is you can reach out to me. I'll post the link above this once I finish going live so that you can book an initial consult with me. The consult is free, and it just gives us an opportunity to take a look at, you know, your dieting history, your goals, what you've been doing, what you're currently doing, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what obstacles are going to get in the way, to see if I can help and to see if we'd be a good fit for working with each other. I just opened up some spots on Monday and Tuesday for some extra initial consults. Saturday's all booked up. Sunday is a family day. That's when I hang out with my daughter, and I don't take any calls, but I do have spots on Monday and Tuesday. And if you do want to get into the program at a discounted price, the pricing, this special pricing only lasts until next Friday. And then prices will go back up. And you can save up to 60% off my 2022 pricing. So if you're thinking about this program, this is the time to do it. This is going to be the best price I can offer over the next year. So get in now. You can start in January. I won't make you start before Christmas. I promise you, we'll attack it in January. And we'll help you reach your goals in 2022. And you also get a bunch of bonuses, a bunch of free stuff. And I'll put out a little teaser here. In January 2022, I am going to be releasing a membership site where I will be lots of videos just like this one, lots of cheat sheets to help you implement this stuff. Part of my Black Friday special is a 1-year access to that membership area. So again, tons of bonuses. Book a call. Let's chat. Let's see if it's the right choice for you and see if we jive together, because you'll be spending a lot of time with me if you do decide to sign up. And thank you so much for watching. We will go back to our normal Flat Belly Fridays starting next week. And I hope to see you there. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Bye.